Welcome to The Thing About Arsenal. We want you to join the conversation. Get in touch on Instagram at Thing About Arsenal or X at About Arsenal Pod. And you can email us your comments, questions and stories to show@thingaboutarsonal. And if you're watching on YouTube, we want to hit 200 likes. We're so close. Jim, you and I, we were at the Kai Havertz game on Wednesday. It felt, I know the term that's been used a lot is a palate cleanser. It's felt like a little bit like a palate cleanser. I'm starting to feel a little bit calmer after Sunday. I don't know if I'm still over it. I want to be positive. I know we've got to get on board, and we'll get into what Mikel Arteta said, but, how are you feeling? Do you feel like the atmosphere has now changed, calmed, we're ready for the next 4 months?
I'm ready to be hurt again. I think sometimes supporting Arsenal feels like you're in a really tempestuous relationship, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And like Sunday was like, oh, this hurts and isn't very fun. And why do I do this to myself? And then Wednesday felt like a really fun date where loads of like interesting, weird stuff happened. And now I'm like, oh, we're going to Leeds at the weekend.
Yeah.
What's going to happen there?
Yeah, but even at the end of the date on Wednesday, there was still a tiny little sting in it. Where you just went, no, I am really shit at this relationship stuff, aren't I? I want to quickly talk, Johnny, about what Arteta said. So after the Man United defeat, right, he's been questioned a couple of times. I feel like he's done a good sort of rallying cry before the Kai Havertz game and after it. He said, in the next 4 months, we're going to live and play with enjoyment, with a lot of courage and with the conviction that we're going to win it. Jump on that boat because this is the way that we're going to live for the next 4 months. Are you all aboard? Do you feel ready to take on the next 4 months?
I'm ready to take on the next 4 months, but I would say, and it was pitch perfect by Arteta, it was almost written perfectly by PR. He's very good at sometimes at speaking to the media. It did, on the surface level, it calmed the nerves, and I thought to myself, yeah, that's exactly what I want my manager and our leader to be saying. But then I thought to myself, what we need is the players to give us that excitement back. We need the players to feel brave. It comes from them. Like we all need therapists as Arsenal fans. We are very scared about, to keep getting to nearly getting it and then dropping off. That is with us. But when we play well, there is none of this. Like after the Villa game, there wasn't this problem. After the Inter Milan game, we were on top of the world. We were enjoying things. I went into that Man United game and I told all my friends it'll be 3-4-0. And then it starts for 30 minutes, it's like that, and then something happens. Same thing, second half again against Kai Havertz. What happened? Like, these are the things you've got to transmit that as a team, and he knows that. It's got to come from the players. So I think it was more of a direct message to the players, and we'll follow suit.
Yeah, I would say in the second half against Kai Havertz, though, it felt like they were trying to score the perfect goal. And I hope that is actually an expression of them trying to have a bit more fun in this boat, right? Because there was a sort of Harlem Globetrotters-y quality to it. Yeah. They know, the game's wrapped up at half-time. They know it is. So there were so many shots, but it was just about, players not quite pulling the trigger at the right time or, not quite making the right decision when they could. But there was a sense that there were a lot of flicks and tricks out there and, that they were having fun. So I'm hoping that is a sign of things to come, because surely the players are in their own heads a little bit in the performances we've seen in the past, because we've looked really predictable and something's got to change there. And this was very different from the approach we've seen before.
Yeah. I get a little bit fed up with this whole atmosphere thing and sort of the way that, we're spoken about as Arsenal fans. I feel like actually a lot of the Arsenal sort of fans and pundits that I've heard on stuff like sort of going at the atmosphere. Like I was at the game on Sunday, and before the game it was just as loud as any big game I've been to, and and the build up was good. I felt like we were doing a lot of good things in that first half an hour. Then we got the goal. Like everything was going to plan, right? Obviously, then we give away a stupid goal and it goes to shit a little bit. But they were like, yeah, but do you remember that time when Saliba scored an own goal and everyone got behind it, everyone got behind the club, or like or when Gabriel passed that ball in the Bournemouth game, everyone got behind Gabriel. The away fans got behind Gabriel. Like I felt that. I actually felt that. Like when it went 1-0 at 1-1, it was a bit like, but I felt like the crowd. I'm not even saying I felt like it. I heard the crowd. Like they really got behind the team at 1-1. I don't feel like the atmosphere is the reason we're not playing as well.
Sure, and if someone's going to shank a ball out when they're making a simple pass, you're not going to go, well done for trying. You're just not, are you?
Yeah. Sorry, Johnny, you go, man.
No, I was going to say the same thing. I remember this. The PSG game, right? I was at for the semi-final, right? I was there at that game. I was with the Ashburton Army in a tunnel, the fire and everything else. That atmosphere was electric, right? And then we started the game and we played really badly, right? And we conceded. Dembele scores after about 10 minutes. But even then, that night, I remember we all responded. We were shocked, but we responded. It was loud in it. And I got home and I saw what Rooney was saying about the crowd and everything else. And this is the narrative. It's such lazy journalism that we're an easy target, and sometimes it's our fault. But there's certain tropes about the Arsenal fan base that it's so easy to report on and tell this narrative that we're this and at the stadiums a certain way. When in fact, like you said on Sunday, there was a response, and we have the right to react a certain way if things aren't going well. But more time, we do get behind our players and we do it. So it's more lazy journalism than what the reality is, I think.
And I think this is the perfect juncture for Arteta to say something like this about this boat that we're all supposedly getting on for the 4-month cruise at the end of the season. Because, it does, I mean, presumably it is filtering through to the players if he feels the need to say that. And I completely agree. You know, the players do have to... they have the responsibility to excite us in the stadium and all that, but there is an element of it being symbiotic, isn't it? And if the fans can go into the stadium full of expectation and make a lot of noise, we've seen that be really, really positive sometimes, especially when they put, like the North London derby where they went all out. It's always going to be loud for that, but the tifo made a difference, and Arteta talking about the noise of the crowd made a difference. People go in there focused on it, and I just think, like, in terms of, I suppose, a response to what happened on Sunday, you've got to acknowledge the mood, right? It'd be silly not to, and I think this is good from him because it's made the Leeds game feel really different in terms of how I'm approaching it in my mind. The Kai Havertz game is as you mentioned, a weird palate cleanser, but it makes the Man United game feel a long time ago. I think these comments do as well. It's almost kind of makes it sound like this is part 2 of the season and we can expect something different. That's what that seems to promise to me.
Well, Jim, absolutely, because now we're on the road.
We're actually on the canal now.
Okay, fair enough. We're on the canal.
Which is actually going to add loads of time,
isn't it? But it is at Elland Road, right? Okay, but we're on the canal going to Elland Road. It's Leeds versus Arsenal. It's Saturday. It's 3 o'clock. We don't see many 3 o'clock Saturday games, but it's enjoyable to see. The last time Leeds beat us at Elland Road, they were in the Champions League, right? And it was November 2000, yeah? Olivier Dacour. He got a free kick, sealing a 1-0 win for Leeds. We were linked to him quite a lot.
Was it a deflected free kick, or have I imagined that? It was.
Johnny, I would trust you. I would trust you.
That's even good for me. That.
But they're in good form, aren't they, Jim?
They are, yeah. They're a very different prospect from the team that we beat 5-0 at the Emirates. Daniel Farke, who I love. He's like the bouncer of a club full of Care Bears, isn't he? He's just he's adorable. But he's changed their formation, and they signed a lot of kind of very tall, very physical players in the summer, and the sort of switch of formation seems to have got the best out of that. So, you know, they're a tricky proposition. I'm kind of pleased that this game is at 3 o'clock, actually, because I think a later game where people are a bit more up for it, have had a few more pints in them, etc. Elland Road's a tricky ground at the best of times, and it will always be tricky, but you want it as early as possible on the day, I think. So, yeah, this is a really, really interesting game. I feel like, you know, what we're all really hoping for after Wednesday is some involvement from Kai Havertz, right? Yeah. Because I think we've spoken a lot today and more regularly about how we have become quite predictable in the recent games, particularly in the Premier League. I know it's, you know, Liverpool are a tricky opponent. Forest put everybody behind the ball fairly regularly. The Man United game was a bit mad, but I do think we have become predictable. Havertz can really mix that up. Yeah. Whether you start him up front or whether you start him in midfield, I feel like the opposition aren't quite going to know what to expect from that. So I'm really hoping that he starts, actually, and presumably because of a planned substitution on Wednesday at half-time, maybe there's an eye on that.
It'd be interesting to see how Arteta wants to use Kai, because obviously he played as a 10 on Wednesday, and it worked, but also that would have a massive effect on the other 10s in the team, and Odegaards and Eze's. I don't know how that's going to work, but what I would say about Leeds and the way they play, and I noticed this in the Newcastle game when they lost 4-3, and even in the United game, they come out. Like, it's not the same as facing a Forest, and their crowd won't allow them to sit back and allow things to happen. And also, where they've got that 5-0 result against us back in the summer when we battered them, and they tried to to try and be compact and sit back, it didn't work. So a lot of their games recently on their run, they've actually gone after the opposition, and that kind of plays into our hands. And I think Arteta will be prepared for that. It's not going to be like Forest. And as I will say about Leeds, I've been there as well to watch games. You made a very good point, Jim. If this had been at night, it's a game that could go very badly very quickly, because that is the most raucous. I don't think that Leeds set of fans, it's a lovely city, but their football fans are animals.
Yeah,
and I mean
mad.
in the best possible way, Leeds people, because I've got family up there. But mad place.
Yeah.
So I'm happy it's 3:00.
But look, since the start of December, they've only lost once in that sort of mad 4-3 at Newcastle, despite a really tough run of fixtures. Like, no side has lost fewer games than Leeds in that period. And, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I'm a big fantasy football fan. I have Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He's very, very useful at about 5.6 million. But, he's been a big part of that. But I feel like the signs we showed against Kairat Amati, caveat is Kairat Amati, but there was a lot more positivity. Eza had a really good game.
Yeah.
And he won the ball back quite a lot of times. He won the ball back like 12 times. Interesting, I can't, he's never not going to play Rice, so it is going to be someone is in that 10 position. I couldn't tell you who it's going to be.
Yeah, it's
because it could be Eza, it could be Havertz.
Or we might we finally see Eza on the left again? Because Trossard and Martinelli, I thought Martinelli had a really lively game against Kairat, but again, the caveats. The goals have dried up for them a little bit, right? So if there's a time to make this experiment again, it's probably
I'd
now. I'd
love to see that. But he binned it off so quickly. Like, wasn't it like Eze, there was one game where he didn't track back.
It's Villa, Matty Cash scored because of him, and he's not, as far as I can tell, I don't think he's played there since.
No.
But I don't think he's going to entirely abandon that idea. I also don't think that Trossard, Saka and Martinelli will have this kind of lower level of output for much longer.
Oh, no.
All three of them. No. That seems very unlikely to me.
But it is those forward positions, because Havertz moves like nobody else in this team, right? And he does the way he sort of almost unlocked Gyökeres was really, really interesting. Does that mean he's going to play Havertz there, bench Odegaard?
Yeah, I mean it's certainly. It's an option that demands experimentation in a Premier League game, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Havertz was so effective in that role in his first start in a long time. I'm still not sure who officially got the assist for Martinelli's goal, but it doesn't happen without Havertz. So essentially, one real assist, one goal, and one actual assist.
Yeah.
And I think when a player plays that well, you just have to try and develop that partnership with him and Gyökeres, because I think if Gyökeres can start he's already started scoring more regularly, but he needs to do it in the Premier League, doesn't it? Havertz really looks like the option to do that, and I just think regardless of whether it means kind of creating a narrative around Odegaard not starting or not, it makes sense to do it, because as I touched on earlier, I think we're so predictable at the moment, and Havertz immediately fixes that.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on the predictability of Odegaard. That is one of the big major flaws of this team at the moment, without a doubt. But I do go back to Havertz's first few months at the club when he was playing in a midfield, and he wasn't great. And we keep caveating it was Kairat. Whether Arteta risked that against Leeds, I don't know. Whether that's something that it might be a case of bringing on as an option, experiment it later in the game. But I don't know. Something tells me that is a big shift.
But he's a duel monster, isn't he, as they say? So he does give you that sort of kind of defensive security further forward as well, which Arteta loves.
He does, and also he's played as a 9, so he knows what balls Gyökeres will want to receive. And I think I noticed that in terms of the way he was looking and the way he was looking in terms of his decision making with his passing, that was very obvious to me that, I played there, so I know how I want that ball fed. And also, going back to the pre-season, his goal he scored against, was it Athletic Bilbao he played in the Emirates Cup? You're seeing that a lot more from him. He's marauding through the middle of the park and he's stretching defences. He's a beast. And it was good to see, but it's whether Arteta changes it that much for Leeds.
I'd be interested to see as well, because obviously, Madueke and Havertz is slightly different to Saka and Havertz.
Yeah.
And Havertz, and even Arteta, when they spoke about Havertz, could he play in midfield? And he said, well, look, he can play in midfield, he can play as a striker, and he can play as a winger as well. And even in the Kairat game, you see the positions that he also takes up in that right wing spot, which then gives Saka a chance to come into that little pocket there.
True.
Now, they're quite physical Leeds, Johnny. Do you think Havertz is the right game for Havertz in midfield?
Well, yeah, like Jim just said, he is a duel monster, but at the same time, what we need to probably bring to that game is an element of composure at times to bring. We might not want to go, band for band with them. We might want to actually, we need to control this game. And what Arteta's sort of shown us so far this season, that he is sort of leaning towards having more control of the game. So that's why I don't know if I can see him starting that way. But if we were to go, weapon for weapon, go machine for machine against Leeds, then Havertz is the right man.
What do you think, Jim? Where do you think he's going to play? right now?
I think if he starts, he'll start him in midfield again.
Yeah.
I think he wants to develop that
Benches.
Gyökeres situation. Yeah, I think for that reason, though, I think what gives me pause for that is that it's going to be Odegaard that doesn't play. And I think he is very, very reluctant to not play Odegaard. So
we do have a history of sort of non-playing captains that lift the trophy at the end,
That's true.
At the end of the season.
Especially on a happy boat.
But on that, I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, it's the way Arteta's telling him to drop deep, But I'm like, is that a message from Arteta?
I wouldn't be surprised if that was true, to be honest, because he does really love his control, doesn't he? And I think, that you can't have a system that is so control-based where players don't have specific instructions and roles to fulfill. Although I feel like I was hoping at the start of the season that Zubimendi coming in, because he sort of moves the ball forward so quickly with either foot, that would mean we'd see Odegaard a bit higher up. But it's not really been the case, is it?
But we'll get on to it. We're going to talk about pundits later on. But, that was one of the things that Paul Scholes said. It was just like, he's like, if I drop back, Roy Keane would be like, what the fuck are you doing there? Piss off up there. And it's sort of like Zubimendi should be saying that to him. But then if you look at caveat, Kai Havertz, like he was playing in that pocket further up. So whether there's been a little conversation post the Man United game.
I mean, I said this to Jim earlier that go back to the Anfield game away last season, and we were 2-0 down. I think 2-0. Did we get a goal back before half time? I can't remember. We were 2-0 down at Anfield, playing awfully. And then we see Odegaard was doing his normal thing, dropping back in. Second half, he came out, starts shooting. The ozone, Odegaard is back. He had massive influence in the second half. And it was almost like the shackles had been taken off, or that Arteta had changed his instruction. I still like Odegaard. I still think he's a good, massive asset to the team. But how much is he getting told to play like this, and how much is it down to poor form is something I don't know.
I think it's a bit of poor form. Now, Jim, the main thing I've been excited about this week is rest, because we made 11 changes. It's quite exciting that players have had a rest. Timber's had a rest, Saliba's had a rest, Gabriel's had a rest, Saka's had a rest, Zubimendi's had a rest. Right? We've had a midweek game every single week since the middle of December. Right? Do you think that this is the reason why our form has dropped in recent weeks? And do you think that now just this 1 week rest can really propel us going forward?
I think it's an element for sure. Because not just in a sort of physical sense, but I feel like we've become quite predictable. And I think that happens when you're playing a lot, because that limits your time on the training ground, right? So we're seeing everything funneled down the right every time we attack. And Forest is a great example. Everyone knows we're going to do that. So if you are setting up to just put everyone behind the ball, as so many teams do, and as so many teams understandably do, you do know that a lot of the time you're going to be repelling that. So you're ready for it before we've even started doing it. And there have been times where it feels like we're kind of, we let teams get in that position, because it's almost like we're so used to the training exercise of trying to pick that lock that we weirdly let them do it, maybe subconsciously. So I feel like a little bit of mental freshness is needed as well. And I think seeing everybody else go out there and have a really fun time in a home game, you're probably thinking, I'm jonesing to get back on that pitch. And I really hope so. Yeah, but I this is a massive game, isn't it? Especially because we play before everybody else. So I'm excited to see what sort of mentality they take into it.
On that note, Slot said some very strange things this week. But one thing Slot said that was
he does say some strange shit.
He is mental, by the way. But he also said this week, he said, if we it was good, basically it was a good thing that they got knocked out to PSG, because that gave them a week to prepare games. That's why they won the league. He said that them winning the league was all about going out to the Champions League. And I do think, like what you were just saying there about, if you want to change things and change the patterns of play, you do need time on the training ground. And you need, if you want to be unpredictable, when you want to get ahead of these data analysts, because we're in a war at the moment in this league, as I keep saying, of data analysts against data analysts. It's
revenge of the nerds, isn't it?
It's the revenge of the nerds. Like, they're playing the games for us, right? If you want to get ahead of it, you probably do need a week. You probably need to be in on Tuesday and Wednesday prepping for a game and say, we're going to do this differently because this is how Leeds have started playing and this is their new formation. And I don't feel like we've had that opportunity. So it's got stale. Maybe Arteta's got a little bit stale tactically because of the amount of games we're playing.
I wonder if there's a bit of like where like Mikel sort of takes the players onto one, the players that are going to play against Leeds, and then he just says he's like, right, you lot over there, you can prepare for Kairat on your own.
Yeah.
Here's a video, watch that. And then watch bloopers with Nick Hancock's own goals. Yeah. Watch that. That's a second reference of that on this very podcast. On the subject of players getting rest, Raheem Sterling is being linked with Leeds, and he's terminated his contract with Chelsea this week. It's only been 6 months since he ended his loan with us. A word for Raheem Sterling, Jim?
Yeah, I think if I had to pick a single word, it would be sadness. Because I still feel just really sorry for him because of how he performed for us, really, because it looked like someone whose ability is just kind of has gone out of them. Like, it's just not in his legs anymore. And he was always really willing, wasn't he? I don't think you'd ever hear an Arsenal fan criticise him for a lack of effort, because that wasn't it at all. It was just whatever he tried didn't seem to come off. And we've seen this happen before. I thought Willian was a busted flush when he signed for us, and because he was very, very poor for us. But then he had a bit of a renaissance at Fulham. So I hope that Raheem Sterling can find somewhere that's a good fit for him, where he can play at a good level, and that we can, see a bit of the old magic.
There is an element, whereas we've been watching Raheem Sterling since the 2012-13 season. I think he got into the team.
16, wasn't he?
16.
Which is,
oh wow,
mad.
I've always had this theory that there is miles on the clock for a player. Yeah. So every player probably has got about 13 years in them at the top level. He's had them years. He's also, when it comes to actually motivating yourself, if you get a massive contract, like he got a big 5-year contract from Chelsea, how do you turn it back on again? Yeah. So, and also coming to Arteta when you're 3 years into a massive deal, and you're coming there really because Chelsea don't want you, and then you've got him as your coach, where there's all these tactical demands and everything else. It's almost impossible to get to that level again. I don't personally think we're going to get Raheem getting to that level anytime soon, but somewhere with less tactical demands, you might have a chance of doing so. There
is a theory which I became aware of from a really interesting article by Jonathan Wilson in The Guardian, that essentially that amount of time that you're talking about is around 500 games. Yeah. And obviously you get the exceptions to the rule like Messi and Ronaldo and the kind of freaks that kind of, go way beyond that. But a lot of top level players, it's 500 games is the amount. And actually Martin Odegaard has gone over that recently because he started so young as well. And obviously you factor in the games to play for Norway as well. yeah, exactly. So it's a very, very interesting theory that, and well worth reading about.
Guys, after the break, our Champions League fate, and Max Dowman signs on the dotted line. The champions! 8 out of 8. League! It's so easy, the Champions League.
Apparently so.
And how many games we've got to get? 2, 4, 6. We've got 7 games left. We'll win all of those, win the Champions League.
Easy.
It's easy. Right, we obviously finished top of the Champions League group. The top 8 qualifiers have been placed into the last 16 bracket already. So as the team that finished top, we are lined up to face one of the sides that finished between 15th and 18th. Right, now the draw was made this morning, and it means we're either going to play the winner of Borussia Dortmund versus Atalanta or Olympiacos versus Bayer Leverkusen, right? So we're going to be playing Olympiacos because that's what we do. It doesn't matter the competition. We'll probably play them in the Premier League next year. Every season we play Olympiacos. Now, Johnny, look, we're through. How are you feeling looking forward to the next round of the Champions League?
Oh, I imagine we go super deep. I'll be honest, because like we all say about the more freedom that we have in that competition, the fact we can surprise teams on the continent. I do want to avoid Atalanta. I don't know what I mean. I've only watched them a couple of times, but we struggled against when we went there last season. I think we drew 0-0. They are a very good defensive team, I think, Atalanta, and I feel as though they could be a banana skin. So it'd be nice to, other than that, the German teams this season, other than Bayern Munich, are awful. So I do not mind.
Even Spurs are beating them.
Yeah, exactly. Spurs beating Frankfurt.
Spurs are the fourth best team in Europe.
Yeah.
Tells you a lot.
Yes.
They got a draw that kind of made that easier.
I know. When you actually look at where they're playing. Interesting, just back on the Olympiacos thing. We've played them 13 times since 2009.
That is mad.
You're joking.
See, I'm not just making it up. We were there.
I was just thinking, Luke, you've completely fabricated that word, but it's... Where?
13 times.
I know the Europa
Carabao
League
Cup.
games.
No, go on. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. The Europa... We must have played them a couple of times in the Europa League.
Yeah.
Champions League group stages, it's got to be, isn't it?
Yeah.
And actually, they
I think there was a
knocked
knockout
us
one.
out of the Europa League, didn't they?
They did.
Did they?
Yes.
Twat.
And is it Marinakis? Doesn't he own Olympiacos
He
as
does,
well?
yeah. So Edu's involved.
So
as
Edu's
well.
involved in it. Oh, it's a big grudge match.
It is.
mate.
Bring it on.
Olympiacos. It'll be very interesting to see. What I think, why I feel quite confident about the Champions League is because when you look at the games that we've lost in the Premier League, obviously we lost to Liverpool, the worldie 1-0. We lost to Villa last minute. Everyone was devastated. The Man United one is the only one where I feel like we played it enough to deserve to lose. So I don't see us, I'm touching wood, of the table, that we're going to lose any games.
You're both going to hate me for saying this, but there are other Premier League teams in the Champions League.
That is the
and
biggest.
they're
We're top of the
threat to
Premier
us.
League.
We are. I don't think we've ever beaten another English team in European competition.
The really good thing is that I think Newcastle could face Chelsea. I don't know if I could be wrong.
Newcastle have got Carabao, haven't they? And they'll probably get through that. So
Yeah.
I guess that's a possibility.
If Chelsea get them two could knock each other. But my biggest fear was looking at it and saying, other than ourselves being the opponent that could knock ourselves out, it would be the Premier League teams I wanted to try and avoid. Going Liverpool, even Liverpool in the Champions League, Anfield,
No,
Champions
thank
League
you.
nights.
Yeah.
Do without that.
Agreed.
I could right do without that.
I'd love, I would be petrified, but I would love to beat Tottenham in the Champions
Oh
League.
yeah.
Yeah, it would be
Like a Champions League
horrible build-up,
semi-final.
but-
Oh my
but
God.
beating them would be incredible.
I
wouldn't
would
it?
feel sick for the moment they took the ball out and went, Tottenham Hotspur. I would literally go, oh God.
This is something that we need to get used to as well, or mentally prepare ourselves for. I think the group stage, especially in the format it's in now, is so wildly different from the knockout stage in terms of the mentality that you take into the games and the stakes and the pressure as they're happening and all of the things that lead to quite mad games. It's kind of like you're starting again. It almost
Yes,
doesn't
it is,
really
yeah.
matter
Different
that we
competition.
won every game. It's a
Yeah.
completely different
It's
type
a
of competition.
completely different, because you notice as well that you remember the mental games that we had, by the way, in the knockout games last season. It was mad because it was either there's an inconsequential nature to the league stage. I think we all know that. Like realistically, there isn't that much jeopardy, and it was a case of like we saw on Wednesday night. Real Madrid went there when they needed to win. Well, they didn't need to win, but it didn't matter. It didn't really matter.
Well,
Yeah.
they thought it didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah.
You've seen they're playing each other again
Oh,
in the
really?
playoff game.
Yeah.
Oh.
This is going to be a Jose Mourinho masterclass.
Yeah.
Do you know how many funny memes I've seen this week of like people saying when Arteta telling Berta that he sees there's a goalkeeper that can score from set pieces?
yeah.
And there's that brilliant one is like, what's the Daniel Day-Lewis film? There Will Be Blood?
Yeah.
Where he's just like, this. Why don't I own this? It's so true.
That's got one of my favourite lines in all cinema, where somebody says something that Daniel Plainview, Daniel Day-Lewis's character, doesn't like, and he goes, "Don't be thick in front of me." It's so powerful.
I feel like that a lot on this podcast, actually.
Again, obviously, we had the situation where we've beaten Bayern like really convincingly in the group stage, but we beat PSG really convincingly in the group stage last season. Like the state of the teams who will be facing each other later in the competition are so different from how they are earlier in the season.
But Bayern Munich were better than the PSG side were when we played them in the group stage last year.
Yeah, Bayern
probably.
Munich were on a quite a convincing winning streak at the time. But I would say it's similar to our World Cup. You see how Argentina lost to Saudi Arabia, then they go on and win the World Cup. Teams grow into it a little bit.
Yeah,
Teams change a lot during the course of a season as well.
And I think actually we need to start seeing that from Arsenal, don't we? We've had a lot of brilliant things to enjoy about the team this season, regardless of what some of the outside noise says. We've been really consistent. Defensively, we've been really, really sound for long periods. There's been times where we've given away sloppy goals, but saw the always brilliant Adam Cleary talking about this the other day, saying the amount of goals we've conceded through mistakes is really low when you factor in how much of the ball we have.
Yeah.
It's really, really low. So these things do happen. But there is a sense, isn't there, that we could have a little bit more kind of zip about us, and
Yes.
we could become a little bit more unpredictable, and the time for that to start happening is very soon.
And also, if you look back, about 31 days ago, we beat Aston Villa 4-1 and looked really electric, really exciting, and everything that everyone's whinging about, we were doing.
Yes.
Yeah, that team's in there, isn't it?
Exactly, and that's not
what's
long ago.
Kind of frustrating, but also really exciting at the same time.
We were saying the other day, I was talking to a good friend of ours, Jacob Pauly, and he was saying that what kind of happens during seasons with Arteta, where it all changes, he reacts, or he's forced to react, whether it's in injuries or bad form or one player coming out of form, because it's happened. 22-23, we started off like a train on 5, that is even a term, then we fell apart. 23-24, slow start, then we were the craziest team, we were probably the best we played. Like we went on a silly run.
Yeah.
and something happens. There's a watershed moment. That's why I do feel Sunday was a watershed moment where it's like, okay, maybe we've got to be braver. Maybe we don't play. We play Declan with 2 10s. Maybe we drop Zubimendi for a little while. Maybe we drop Odegaard and go for something a little bit more unpredictable.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. Well, listen, talking of exciting things, Max Dowman has signed a pre-contract. So when he's 17 in December, when he's 17 in December, right, he's going to sign a proper contract, and that's exciting, right? That means we've got him. It's big news this morning, right? Now, Arteta has said he is one of the best players to come through Elland. What he's done with us at the age of 15, he said, I haven't seen it before, maybe only with one guy that used to play in Barcelona. He means Messi, but maybe not even that. Listen, I saw it as Arteta said it. I was like, here we go. Everyone's going to say he's saying he's as good as Messi. No, what he's saying is he broke through at a young age, and I don't think he even saw Messi break through, because I think Messi was like 16 when he played in his first El Clasico. So it is incredible what Max Dowman has done.
You know, it's always going to be reported like that. But I think if you're a player of that sort of talent, you have to get used to people making comparisons to you, and there being expectation and there being pressure. So even if Arteta himself isn't saying it, someone's going to say that sort of thing sooner or later. He's a huge hope for English football, isn't he? So that's just something else for him to deal with. But it's great news. It's not surprising news, is it? We know that him and his family are Arsenal fans. This was really always going to happen. Yeah. But it's good to have it done.
I think it's quite useful that he's had this injury. Like, obviously not good for his body, but it's quite useful that he's actually come out of the limelight a bit, because I didn't like really us relying on bringing a 15-year-old to help us in games.
That annoyed me at Anfield. Yeah, it felt so daft.
Gimmicky.
Yeah,
it felt
that's
gimmicky.
Exactly it. Yeah,
and also I've just had a big row with United friends questioning Arteta's youth policy, and on the day we signed a pre-contract with Dowman. But I agree. At certain times it's about protecting value a lot of the time, because we have lost players. We were going to talk about Norton-Cuffy recently later, but. Yeah, I like this. I like this, what it means for our club. We are now keeping hold of our talent and not letting them go. And he is special. And I don't think there's anything wrong with getting excited about young players, and within reason. But we haven't seen many players of this ability. No. We haven't seen 15-year-olds starting and winning penalties and winning fouls in the Premier League pretty much ever. Yeah. So I feel as though, I think there's a reason to be excited. And if you want to call him Messi, call him Messi. I'll tell you, mate.
Yeah, fine. Happy for it.
I was at one of the pre-season friendlies, I think it was Villarreal, and I saw a couple of grown men with Dowman 53 on the back of their shirts. I'm like, come on.
You can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, there is a line, isn't there?
I feel weird having Trossard on my back.
There is a sex offenders list as well. I'm joking.
That's getting cut. This is a conversation to have for another podcast, but I do think it was interesting. Arteta spoken a lot about how only 20 players are allowed in the Premier League match squad. Now, I believe in the Champions League it's 23, and this is the thing. This is a conversation to have at another time, but we are going to have to sell some players at the end of the season, and it'll be interesting to see who goes out, because if you want players like Dowman and Nwaneri, like if you want them to get minutes, and if it's still going to only be 20 players in the match squad, they're not even allowed to travel with the squad.
Yeah.
So like it is going to become a bit of a problem, isn't it?
It's not just Arteta saying this as well, and it makes sense. It's Pep Guardiola, and I think possibly Arne Slot as well. Of course, it's the bigger clubs with the bigger budgets thinking that, but it's very interesting in the development of the kind of the 5 subs era, really, where it is becoming much more of a squad game, and it is kind of handy to have those options on the bench, isn't it? And I think yeah, I'm all for it as well. But more options is good.
But the thing is, Arteta was talking about the mental health of the players. Mm-hmm. And as much as, who cares about footballers? Who cares about football? But essentially, it's like, as Arteta said, like, we can make people's dreams come true, right? Mm-hmm. Johnny, I'll sign you for Arsenal, right? I'll make your dream come true. But then if I say to you every week, you can't play, and in fact, you're not even allowed to travel, you can sit and watch it on telly. Right, and we'll see it training on Tuesday. Like that's not good. And if you want teams to play in 4 different competitions, you have got to increase the size of the squads if you want to have all these players.
Without a doubt, and this is the thing as well. I mean, it's very interesting. I'd love to know the conversation, and there'll be intense conversations about pathway with Max Dowman's team and his agents and everyone else, and they would have been convinced, even though his parents are Arsenal fans, there is a pathway, and this is the way football is going. We will have to expand squads because of the amount of injuries. Players' careers are being shortened because of the intensity of the schedule. So I think there is going to be room for all of these players to be part of it. Norgard came in this season. I think Norgard's been brilliant, right? And he was brilliant the other night, and I loved that signing for us. but he knows what his role is. He knows that some days he's not making match day squads.
Yeah.
And this is a Danish international.
Captain of Brentford.
Yeah, captain of Brentford. There's roles. You don't play every minute, but the season is 60 games long. And if you're 15, 16 years of age, you're around a winning squad, there is nothing wrong with it. And I feel as though that is what you'd be telling young players now.
But if you increase the squad size
Yeah.
to 22, then those players can come along.
Yeah.
Because, when it's at 20... You aren't going to be bringing along and you can't believe in Norgard at home if you're going to be bringing along a load of 15-year-olds.
Well, we saw this during COVID as well. The extra subs, it's not gone back to. We've got 5 subs. We forget that it was only 5 years ago. It was only you had to bring on 3 subs. The game's going that way.
Yeah.
So we need bigger squads, and younger players will have more room for development of younger players.
And that way, Max Dowman won't have played 500 games by the time he's 23.
There you go. I mean, how many subs? When Arteta was saying in the season with Ethan that how many other 18-year-olds have had this many minutes?
Yeah.
No, this is the way the game's going. You'll get your turn.
Yeah. Now, I want to. You mentioned Brooke Norton-Cuffy. What a name! Now, Inter are on the verge of signing the former Arsenal Academy graduate Brooke Norton-Cuffy. We sold him to Genoa. Johnny, you were telling me they sold him for £2 million, right?
Yeah, €2 million.
€2 million, and now they're looking. It's going to be €25 million, and Arsenal are going to get a 20% sell-on fee, right? So that's going to pay Jesus' wages for how long, Johnny?
About 4 months.
4 months, good. It's good money. It's good. It's good money if you can find it. Look, this feels like I feel like this is a positive story for Arsenal because often we've sold players and not seen the value. Now I know we only sold him for $2 million, but maybe that's where the market for him was, and now 20% sell-on fee.
Well, that'll probably be why the fee was quite low, right? If you're putting in a sell-on fee like that, it's essentially a bit of a gamble that the player's going to do well, and then you're going to make the money back later. And of course, Genoa would benefit from getting him at a cut price. And I think we're trying to get better at selling players, aren't we? And this is a great example of that. I think we're sort of insistent on sell-on fees where possible now, which is something I think we've been a bit slack on in the past. So yeah, this is a great example of that strategy starting to pay off, I think.
Yeah.
What happened to Charlie Patino?
He is in the second division in Spain. Yeah,
Segunda.
Not quite.
I literally thought he was going to be the...
He was the Max Dowman, wasn't he? Yeah. It just shows you how kind of unpredictable.
I think he went to Blackpool and got addicted to rock, I think. And that's I'm joking. Like,
surely no one's ever finished the whole one.
Exactly. No,
he just said 20% sell-on fees.
Big aspirations for Charlie Patino, but he just, I don't think physically he was up to it.
No.
I think that was a problem. Very good technically, but just weren't up to it physically.
Yes. Well, all in all, it's been a good week for Arsenal with our academy. We've signed Dowman. Norton-Cuffy's gone and done well. Now, after the break, what is the point of ex-players? Now, I hate having to do this, but we are going to have to talk about Paul Scholes, right? Because this week, Paul Scholes has claimed this week that if Arsenal are to do it, they're going to be the worst team to ever win the Premier League.
I know that we're guilty of doing this ourselves now, but this particular clip of Paul Scholes just simply will not leave the Arsenal sphere. Yeah. It's just like it's got caught up in the air conditioner or something. It's just recycling. I think it's winding people up more than it needs to be honest.
But he said the other day that if you look at a Premier League team of season, what Arsenal player would get into a Premier League forward player would get into a Premier League team of the season. Okay, 2002, 2003, United win the title. There is one player, it is Paul Scholes, that made it from the Man United team into the Premier League season.
Annoying.
There's five Arsenal players.
Really?
Yeah,
Ashley Cole, Sol Campbell. It's surface level. Does it matter?
Sure,
they won the league, United. So.
It doesn't matter, but Jamie Carragher has made this point as well, and I think it's an interesting one because I do actually kind of agree though at points because it has been a slightly underwhelming kind of season from an attacking perspective in some ways. I do think it's an interesting point, but I know what you're saying. Yeah, Paul Scholes feels like someone who wakes up every day and goes, "Oh fuck me, this again, life again."
Yeah. But can I just also say to that? Across the league, though.
You're supposed to say.
There's currently 3 players that are on double figures in terms of goals in this league. There's no Salahs. There's no Alexis Sanchez's. There's no... Okay, Haaland's done well. He's in a bad spell of form. This is a trend across the league that teams are finding ways of nullifying attacks.
Well, that'll be because we've shown them how to do that.
Yeah.
So that is also our fault.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember that.
Yeah, in fact, I've got to take some accountability here.
You
Paul
have.
Scholes, you're right.
Interestingly, like Paul Scholes' relationship with the current Man United squad, like hasn't been great recently. We spoke in another podcast about how Martinez, called him out on it, right? Where it's in stark contrast to the Arsenal former players. It's not always been like this, but I feel like in recent times, Gabriel Jesus was saying in the week that wherever Henry speaks, they listen.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would have been the same with the way that Vieira was speaking about the weekend, because I don't think Vieira was quite right with some of the stuff that he was saying. But I feel like we've got quite a nice relationship with our former players right now.
Yeah, and that doesn't always happen, does it? And it is. I read a really interesting thing, which suggested that both Thierry Henry and Ian Wright kind of consider themselves like always open to a phone call from a current Arsenal player. And Henry has a really good relationship with Bukayo Saka in particular. He said he's like a little brother to him, and I think that's brilliant. It's a really great thing to have these figures from relatively sort of recent success in the lifetime of a club available to the current players, and I think that is something to be appreciative of at the moment, that we're not in this situation where like ex-Man United players are just mugging them off every week and mugging them off in a way where they're essentially just describing what is happening. They've got to call it as they see it, and when they see it as something bad, they have to do it. And we've had this in the past, right? William Gallas used to pipe up all the time, Emmanuel Petit, and
Henry as well, at times.
Not to give Arteta too much credit, but I do remember after that FA Cup win, Arteta put out, there was an Adidas advert, and there was a lot of talk, and there was a lot of messaging around creating this sense of family around the club. And it sounded like big PR nonsense, whatever else. But he's fostered this environment. There is a brotherhood, and there's an alumni, and there's Arsenal stretch. The family is a large, large community of people. And I feel as though he's got messages to players. Don't get me wrong, Henry said some very negative things in the past, but even this season, he has been supportive. We are on the cusp of winning it. And he's like, okay, I've got a job to do here.
I totally agree.
And it stems from what Arteta is actually, the philosophy he's put out there from way back in 2020 after we won the FA Cup. We're building something. This is a family.
Absolutely agree. And I think, interestingly, there were times when Henry was speaking quite badly about Arteta and Arsenal in general, but I feel like there was a turning point, and it was before Wenger had come back to the watch a game at the Emirates, and Arteta, from everywhere I've seen, seems to be instrumental in bringing that back. And so as much as, the players have been a little bit more positive, but I do feel like that has come from Arteta and the club, because that is what you need. You need those supporters outside of the club.
Yeah, definitely, and that kind of goes into what we were just saying about the kind of podcast sphere and the Twitter sphere now, isn't it? Where you can't move for criticism of your club, even when they're sat 4 points clear at the top of the league. And I suppose whatever you can do to kind of manage that external noise by putting some positivity into it is good, and it just is part of football now.
And not to overstate our influence, but I've been very conscious of this from the start of when we've done it. I keep telling everyone, we're going to win a league. But it's important that, I do feel it's important, if you've got a voice, or if anyone, if you're on Twitter, not to feed into that negativity. If you know it has an influence, think about what you're typing. Like, if we're going to be on this happy boat, we're all on it together, and we've all got to sort of make sure that we're protected and ready to win.
There are some people as well who think, I'm always really surprised by this, where you see people who criticise the club online, and fans of every club are the same, where they feel like it's their duty to be critical, and if they're not critical, then they're letting the club down in some way by not saying hard truths. It's like, do you really think Mikel Arteta is looking at your Instagram post?
Before we wrap up, I am feeling positive. I am on HMS Arteta. I'm getting excited. We're 4 points clear. What I will say is, if we lose to Leeds, I will shit myself. I don't know if anyone it feels like that. Jim, I feel like you're quite level-headed. How are you going to feel if we lose to Leeds?
If we lose to Leeds, I think I'll walk to the nearest McDonald's and just go, give me all of it. Give me all of it. And I'll see how long I can go for until I just pass out.
You're going to Bruce Bogtrotter it?
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Johnny?
I could walk in front of a bus. Bit strong. Oh, God. No, I'm not going to do that. No,
you were saying in the lift on the way up here, you were like, even if I don't want to say it, that's a terrible impression you've done. Even if I don't want to say it, Ray Winston, I don't want it. Get your mobiles and laptops out. I don't want to say it, but even if we lose to Leeds, just stay positive.
Oh, dear me.
And you didn't specify how fast the bus is going, right? It could just be a little
scared.
nudge.
Yeah,
I bump in and jump out the way afterwards, maybe. No, it would be, listen, I can't handle it. I can't handle not winning tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm sort of, this is the first time we've really considered it as a possibility. What was I saying earlier about being positive?
We're putting too much pressure on the players. Guys, Leandro, if you're listening, don't let us put the pressure on you. You'll be fine.
Seize the opportunity, boys.
Come on. What team do you want to be in the next 4 months? Yeah. Listen, if you want to get in touch, at Thing About Arsenal on Instagram, at About Arsenal Pod on X, or email us, show@thingaboutarsenal.com. And if you're watching on YouTube, 200 likes.